You will not run any floodgates in your deck that don't functionally FTK your opponent. Just tell them you cannot play at all and you auto win. Welcome to the new series on Dueling Wave called The Worst Mechanics in Yu-Gi-Oh! Let's get into this.
Draw your last pathetic card so I can end this, Yugi.
My grandpa's deck has no pathetic cards, Kaiba, but it does contain the unstoppable
Dueling Wave. Welcome back to the channel, guys. I really want to just shout out, before we get into anything here, I want to shout out the Discord yet again. The Discord is linked down in the description below. If you want to visit, it's Dueling Waves Battlegrounds. We have our own custom format. If you want to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And have actually fun while playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Come down, see what we have to offer. We have our own custom ban list. We've actually incorporated a lot of really cool, interesting ideas. It's really taking form now. The format is 6 months young, so there's a lot of new ideas, a lot of different things that we're trying out and seeing what sticks. But currently, I mean, we've got things like a limit 1, which is an idea from Duel Links. You know, you have a whole list of cards. You can pick any of those at 1 in your deck, and then the rest are all functionally forbidden. We have a limit 5, which allows you to run 5 cards total from this list, meaning like, oh, you got you can run 3 of this or 2 of this together, or you can run 5 one-ofs from this list, or however, you know what I mean. We have a limit 10, which is kind of like a staples list. What we found is new decks made by Konami are 1-card combo decks. All you see is here's my 1-card combo and 4 hand traps, right? Instead of hitting every single 1-card combo deck without absolutely slaughtering it, what we did was we made a limit 10. And in the limit 10, you can put whatever staples you'd like, you know, certain hand traps, the most powerful hand traps. And so then if you have these 1-card combo decks that have 17, 18 spots of non-engine room, instead of them being able to just run all the best hand traps in the game, you put certain hand traps and board breakers on here so that they can't just lump them all together in the deck and make the most optimal list ever. Under this limit 10, where we have like Ash, Nib, Imperm, whatnot, that means you can pick 3 Imperm, 3 Nib, 3 Ash, 1 Veiler, or 3 Dominus Impulse, 1, like, you know, you can do any mix to 10, right? And then if you want more hand traps, well, then you have to run the more skillful ones. You have Bell, you have Ogre, you have Phantasme, and all sorts of other hand traps, other board breakers that you can run, like Raigeki, that are really never used other than in Tenpai, that are very good cards that should be used, right? And we've also depowered the format to you actually have back and forth interactive gameplay, so you're not just getting FTK'd immediately. So overall, come join us. The format's really taking shape. It's really fun. We have tournaments every month, 2 tournaments a month, and we're going to try to even ramp that up if it's possible. So if that sounds cool to you, go down to Discord, come down, say hi, introduce yourself, don't be shy. We can't wait to see you. Anyway, back to the video. Today I want to bring you a video that's, I'm hoping that turns into a series if it does well, but if not, it's still going to be a good standalone video. And it's called The Worst Mechanics in Yu-Gi-Oh!, as I said before. In this video, I want to dissect certain things about the game that are fundamentally flawed or cripple the gaming experience. And in today's video, we're going to talk about Floodgates. Floodgates are a player-coined term describing an effect that is continuous or lingering, or it just stays around for at least a turn, and that says you cannot do something. Some sort of action. There are a bunch of different floodgates in the game, almost too many to even count, but they have a wide range in power levels, and they range from devastating ones like Dimensional Barrier, which can linger for a turn, you can't interact with it, to another lingering floodgate on the opposite end of the spectrum, which is completely reasonable, and like Threatening Roar. It's just technically a floodgate. You cannot do something. You cannot declare an attack. Then you have like continuous effects, such as like Vanity's Fiend, you know, on one end of the spectrum, really powerful, and then like Jinzo, which is like stop trap cards, which back in the day was insane, and now it's kind of ass and kind of unrunnable unless you come across like some sort of all-out trap deck, which even then you wouldn't need to run it. You have other tools to interact with their board. You have continuous traps, continuous spells, different cards like the banned Imperial Order, which on one end of the spectrum is you cannot activate spell cards. Basically a third of the game, more like half of the game, because mostly we run monsters and spells now, not traps. But basically like a third of the game is taken away with 1 card. For both players, sure, but you already set up your board and then flip it, so you don't even care about your spells, right? Because you've already used all your spells. And then to the other end of the spectrum, we have like things like non-fusion area or whatever, which says neither player can fusion summon, which functionally only hurts like branded, because most other fusion decks that have been released in modern times can just out it using like a link monster or whatever, right? And then you can proceed to make your fusion plays anyway. Floodgates come in all shapes and sizes, from absolutely devastating to completely manageable. But cards that can invalidate, the more they can invalidate, right? The more they invalidate out of the game, the more powerful they are, right? Because they take away more actions from you. It's why Imperial Order is more powerful than non-fusion area. Technically, Imperial Order has non-fusion area built into it because most of the time you fuse using spell cards, and Imperial Order says you cannot use spell cards. So it's like the Imperial Order has a more broader application. Taking away spells, monsters, or in some cases even traps is a very devastating effect. But in today's game, there's another fourth element that you can take away that's maybe more devastating than anything, and that's taking away special summons, right? As the aforementioned Vanity's Fiend, and plenty of other cards like Summon Limit, Royal Oppression, Vanity's Emptiness, whatever. There's a million of them. You all know all of them. These are turn-ending, insane cards that take away pretty much, like, they basically say you cannot play. It's not just you cannot special summon. When the game is all about special summoning, it says functionally you cannot play. The only exception here with certain like cards that take away entire mechanics is like Royal Decree and the aforementioned Jinzo. Anything that deals really with traps, no one really plays because traps are so sparingly ran that dedicating entire spaces in your extra deck, or not in your extra deck, in your side deck or your main deck to combat these cards is usually not conducive. Like there's no point to it. Because if you do come across these decks, you can just use the standard evenly, Lightning Storm and whatnot to just out their back row and then keep playing. There's a reason for cards like Royal Decree not being used. The reason for that is the number one smoking gun argument of why Floodgates are poorly designed and bad for the game. And the number one argument why they should be banned from the game. Not all of them, for the most part, the tough to deal ones. And that's the argument that Floodgates, 90% of the time, are completely fair and reasonable. And when a floodgate, such as non-fusion area, right? There's only like the top 10% of floodgates that are broken. 90% of floodgates are completely fair and reasonable. Cards that say you can't attack. It's like, okay, unless that's paired with something, usually it's fine. And it's the same reason that floodgates shouldn't exist, except those mild ones. Because no one will run them. You will not run any floodgates in your deck that don't functionally FTK your opponent. Just tell them you cannot play at all and you auto-win. Think of a card like Droll and Lockbird, which kind of function as a floodgate. Your opponent will search, you drop Droll and Lockbird, and then you're hoping that this ends their turn. Or they make, instead of making 4 interrupts, they make 1. Okay, Droll did its job. If Droll is in a format where the top decks only search 1 to 2 times a game anyway, or 1 to 2 times a turn anyway, you're never going to run Droll. And that's the stupid part about floodgates. They're a card that will never, ever, ever, no one in their right mind will ever run these cards unless they are absolutely auto-win broken cards. It's why they're always in the side deck, the best ones, right? They're in the side deck, post game 1, you make your board, you set it, and then you flip that, and then you auto-win. No one's going to set non-fusion area in their side deck. It's too much space for something so niche. And it does still take away a whole mechanic out of the game, and it's still unplayable. And this is always the thought process of any floodgate being included in your deck. Does this auto win me a game? No, I will not run it. If this card is, it stuns my opponent slightly, no one's running that. Those type of floodgates will never be ran. There's plenty of examples throughout the game of them. Things even like deck lockdown, which is just specific enough that for the vast majority of the game, it's never been ran other than a very few select niche formats where, yet again, just like Droll or some of these other floodgates, it is an auto win in those formats. The thought process ultimately is, do I auto win? No, I will not include that card. Do I auto win? Yes, put it in my side or my main. Now I can hear the argument coming through the screen of saying, isn't this true for all cards? Don't we run X card because it kills this deck? Well, no, it isn't. Floodgates, by the function of their design, cannot be healthy and used in a healthy way. A card like Ash, even though it's very powerful and almost like broken, if you don't believe Ash is broken, then don't play it in your deck, right? Like why does everyone auto include 3 Ash in every deck if it is an absolutely insane card? Even a hand trap, which I don't like the design of hand traps whatsoever. I think they're a band-aid on the game to keep the floodgates, I guess, capped up so that it doesn't absolutely explode and like wash over this entire game and destroy the game. Floodgates aren't somewhat skillful like hand traps, where like, okay, I have to hit them on their key choke point or whatever, or the hand trap is a lot less effective. The floodgate is just, I can flip it anytime I want for the most part. And then they take away a mechanic and then you auto win. It's a 1 or a 0, a binary. There is no maneuverability in that dichotomy. There's floodgates with maneuverability, like summon limit, like Power Sync Stone, and they're still inherently broken. The only reason they weren't ran is because there was something better that existed. But then once those floodgates got hit, such as your rivalries, your Gozens, blah, 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 all this different stuff, people just pivot to the next thing. Right now, people are running Power Sync Stone after Summon Limit got hit, after Skill Drain got limited, right? After all of these floodgates get hit, they're just like, okay, well, let's run Power Sync Stone, because it's functionally the same thing if I use it a little bit more skillfully. If you can even use that sentence with floodgates. Future floodgates, if Konami wants to keep printing them, should just be parodies of old ones. Something like Skillless Skill Drain or something, and then just says like, after 5 effect activations or whatever, you can flip this. And it's like, okay, well, you know, you still have to play into it. It's not just flip, pay 1,000 and automatically negate everything, right? Something like that. Like a rivalry of the warlords, I don't know, requiring 2 discards or something. I don't know, you know, something like that, needing to pay a significant cost. Or maybe you can't have any cards in your graveyard to activate this card, right? So something like that. Because that way then it's like, okay, well, the deck is then a dedicated trap deck, which I still wouldn't agree with, but it's more understandable than just having to deal with a broken board and a floodgate. I think one floodgate that's an exception to almost all of these critiques that I have would be General Ryo of the Ice Barrier. This card says that you can negate any monster effect on your opponent's side of the field after it resolves, and they can like discard a card to prevent that from happening, which then gives your opponent the chance to maneuver around it and to play around it at a heavy cost, which I think that's the only time floodgates are kind of reasonable. And even 1 discard, that's a lot. So overall, maybe even General Ryo isn't fair, but I think there's room in his design to make fair-ish floodgates. It's inherently very strong, but it gives maneuverability, and that's all people really want with floodgates. With floodgates, usually you flip it and it's over. There is no, I'm gonna make my SP Little Knight, you know, with Skill Drain face up. You can't do it because it's just gonna be negated, you know. But the question here is, what do you guys think? Are floodgates fair? Are they unfair? Do you like them? Do you enjoy playing them? Or do you despise their very existence? Should they be a part of the game? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe, because it really does help the channel. It really helps give us the juice here to keep this going. Like the video and check this video out. And I will see you as always.